Imagine launching a massive multi-million-dollar legal offensive, like something totally designed to cement your moral high ground, protect your personal brand, and empower victims everywhere.
Right. The ultimate show of strength.
Exactly. So you assemble this legal dream team, you file all the paperwork, and then almost immediately the very executives who fund your industry turn around and basically declare your career completely ruined.
Yeah, it's a phenomenal case study in miscalculation.
Hmm.
I mean, when you introduce immense wealth and unyielding egos into the legal system, you kind of stop fighting for
You
justice.
start fighting a war of attrition.
Exactly. Against your own reputation, honestly.
Well, welcome to the deep dive. Today we are dissecting the mechanics of a celebrity legal battle that is just unraveling right in front of us.
Unraveling very publicly, I might add.
Very publicly. So, just to give you the quick overview, a major Hollywood actress sued her co star and director for harassment and retaliation over alleged incidents on a movie set back in December 2024.
And, the expectation was a definitive victory.
Right, a slam dunk, but instead it has morphed into this massive PR disaster that is currently threatening billion-dollar superhero movie franchises. So, okay, let's unpack this.
And we really need to set a strict parameter for this discussion right up front.
Yes, the rule for today, for everyone listening, we are focusing strictly on the mechanics, the underlying logic, the legal maneuvers, the corporate panic.
We're entirely skipping the tabloid gossip.
Exactly, no gossip. We want to look at the actual machinery of a crisis. Our mission here is to uncover how attempting to forcefully control a narrative can actually destroy it.
And what that teaches you about crisis management in your own world.
Uh,
Because the mechanics of the failure hold the real value here.
they really do.
I mean, the immediate fallout demonstrates a severe misread of the modern Hollywood business model.
Right.
This lawsuit was ostensibly designed to empower the plaintiff, right?
Right.
But the blowback from major industry executives has just been swift and brutal.
The language being used behind closed doors is staggering. I mean, high-level studio executives are flat out stating that the actress's career is currently ruined.
Yeah, the quotes coming out are intense.
One executive went on the record stating she has, quote, made her bed and she can lie in it. And they claimed she has this long-standing toxic reputation for always assuming she knows best.
Which is devastating.
Right. And this isn't just standard industry gossip. This is coming from the studio that houses massive superhero franchises like Deadpool and Wolverine, which prominently star the plaintiff's husband. And they're going into full-blown panic mode.
Well, what's fascinating here is to understand why a studio executive would break rank and speak with such hostility, you really have to look at the underlying architecture of IP protection.
Intellectual property.
Right. Modern studios do not operate like the classic Hollywood system anymore. They aren't simply making movies.
They're managing ecosystems.
Exactly. Interconnected, billion-dollar IP ecosystems. They want their massive stars clean, clear, and ready to go. They literally view human actors not as irreplaceable artists, but as highly volatile variables in a very expensive mathematical formula.
So it's like throwing a rock into a pond. But the pond is filled with billion-dollar superhero franchises.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it.
And when a human variable starts acting unpredictably, it threatens the entire equation. The ripples are threatening entire movie slates.
Precisely. When an actor initiates a highly publicized, aggressive legal battle, they immediately transition from being a corporate asset to a corporate liability.
Because the executives don't care about the personal drama.
No, they do not care about the specifics of what happened on a set in 2024. They care that they have hundreds of millions of dollars invested in these superhero characters, and this tangential legal mess is threatening their return on investment.
It's corporate contagion.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
The hostility isn't necessarily a judgment on the allegations themselves. It's a reaction to the disruption of the business ecosystem.
They're terrified that the radioactive fallout from this lawsuit is going to drift over and contaminate their totally unrelated blockbuster slate.
Right.
But that begs the question, like, how did a legal strategy designed to protect a prominent actor end up turning her into a corporate pariah?
It's wild.
The jurisdictional failure right out of the gate really seems to be the catalyst here.
Oh, absolutely. The initial legal maneuver was a spectacular overreach. It immediately cost the plaintiff credibility with the court.
Because
Yeah.
out of the 13 initial claims brought to the court, 10 were completely dismissed by a judge,
10 out of 13. Gone.
leaving her with only 3 very narrow claims to actually take to trial. Let's break down the mechanism behind that dismissal because honestly, the strategy here is fascinating.
It really is.
So, the incidents in question happened on a movie set in New Jersey. The plaintiff lives in New York, and her legal team filed the lawsuit in a New York court.
Right, which is already a choice.
But then they attempted to force the New York judge to apply California law to the case.
Yeah, it was a classic,
Gotcha.
albeit super brazen attempt at jurisdiction shopping.
Okay, but I want to push back on this a little bit, or at least, test the logic of it. Following the Me Too movement, California passed incredibly strict, specific legislation regarding hostile work environments and harassment.
They did, yes.
Yeah,
Very robust protections.
right. So if I am a worker and I've experienced a hostile environment, why wouldn't a judge just allow me to utilize the strongest legal framework available in the country?
I see where you're going with this.
To me, it sounds a bit like trying to use a discount coupon at a completely different store just because you like their return policy bit. I understand retail stores don't allow it, but shouldn't the justice system be flexible if it ultimately serves the victim better?
Okay, so the store coupon analogy actually perfectly illustrates the flaw in their strategy.
How so?
Because the justice system simply cannot operate as a customizable a la carte menu. Laws are fundamentally tied to geography.
Right, the jurisdiction.
Exactly. And the democratic consent of the governed. Within that specific geography, California's robust protections exist because the legislature in California, representing the people there, debated and enacted them.
So a New York judge can't just borrow them?
Right. A New York judge cannot arbitrarily import a California statute to govern an event that physically occurred in New Jersey.
Because doing so undermines the entire concept of state sovereignty.
Precisely. I mean, if judges could simply pick and choose whichever state's laws they preferred on a given day, the predictability of the entire legal system would collapse.
It'll be chaos.
Total chaos. You cannot select laws based on where you happen to hold celebrity clout. The New York judge essentially looked at the filing and said, this is a New Jersey incident. New Jersey law applies.
Wow, the arrogance of the strategy is really what seems to have backfired. The underlying assumption was just that the rules would bend simply because of who was asking.
That's exactly it.
And this unforced error didn't just cost them the 10 claims. It wasted a tremendous amount of money and totally humiliated the legal team in a very public arena.
Yeah, it definitively proved that California rules do not magically apply across state lines just because you're famous.
And more importantly, the fallout from that.
Right. The jurisdictional ruling forced the case to proceed under New Jersey discovery rules, which basically opened a door they could not close.
The discovery phase. This is where the whole thing goes from a strategic misstep to just an absolute operational nightmare.
Though without a doubt.
Because when a lawsuit moves into discovery, you are demanding total transparency from your opponent. But you also open your own life up to that exact same level of scrutiny.
Litigation is a two-way mirror. You demand the court pull back the curtain on your opponent, only to realize your opponent has been meticulous in documenting your behavior as well.
And that's exactly what happened. We found out that the defendants, the director, and his cohort were literally keeping private time-stamped memorandas during the actual filming of the movie.
Yeah, that was a huge revelation.
They were actively memorializing their daily interactions because they felt threatened by the actress's behavior on set. They were quietly building this defensive paper trail long before a lawsuit was even a consideration.
Which fundamentally alters the narrative for the public and the court. The plaintiff filed this suit expecting to be the sole narrator of the workplace dynamic.
To control the story.
Exactly. The revelation of these time-stamped memos suddenly introduces a competing, highly documented narrative. One that paints the plaintiff not just as the victim of a hostile environment, but potentially as the creator of one.
And the mechanism of modern legal discovery just makes it so much messier. When we talk about releasing court emails, I think people often picture, a lawyer sitting in a dusty room reading through printed letters.
Right, like an old movie.
Yeah. But e-discovery operates more like a massive, indiscriminate vacuum cleaner.
That is the perfect way to visualize it. Modern e-discovery relies on complex algorithms and really broad keyword searches running across entire corporate servers.
It sweeps up everything.
Massive amounts of data.
Which perfectly explains how a wildly famous pop star's cookie recipe inexplicably ended up in the public record of this harassment lawsuit.
Yeah, that was bizarre.
It's so funny, but also wild. The algorithm just sweeps up innocent cross-chatter, personal emails, irrelevant attachments, dragging totally innocent bystanders into the collateral damage of a public legal fight.
It really shows how invasive the process is.
It does, but honestly, the element of this that truly stops me in my tracks is the architecture of the plaintiff's legal team. She isn't just using one prominent lawyer.
No.
She is utilizing 4 separate, highly prestigious corporate law firms.
4 massive, top-tier litigation powerhouses, all simultaneously working on a single, fairly straightforward harassment claim.
How does that even happen? Like, aren't lawyers fundamentally supposed to be the objective voice of reason in a crisis?
You would hope so.
You would assume that with 4 top-tier firms filled with some of the smartest legal minds in the country, somebody would spot the flawed jurisdiction strategy. How do 4 firms let their client walk off a legal cliff like this?
Well, if we connect this to the bigger picture, what you are looking at is the textbook definition of the decision by committee phenomenon.
Okay.
And it's violently colliding with the very real economic pressures of big law.
Explain the economics of that to me.
So when you have 4 highly profitable, prestigious firms representing a client with immense, seemingly limitless wealth, a dangerous psychological dynamic takes hold.
Nobody wants to say no.
Exactly. Nobody wants to be the dissenting voice. Nobody wants to be the lawyer who looks a billionaire client in the eye, tells them their strategy is legally unsound, and risks losing that incredibly lucrative account to one of the other 3 firms sitting right next to them at the boardroom table.
Oh, wow. So it creates an echo chamber of yes men.
Precisely.
The financial incentive for the firm is just to keep the wealthy client happy and continue billing hours, not necessarily to give them the harsh reality of their legal standing.
Right. In a standard attorney-client dynamic, a lawyer will tell a client, look, this is a weak position. We are likely to lose this motion. Let's look for a settlement.
Because they have to be realistic.
Yes.
Yeah.
But when responsibilities diffused across 4 different firms, the bystander effect kicks in. Each firm assumes the other firm has vetted the strategy.
Or they just hype each other up.
Exactly. They convince each other that an aggressive, high-risk maneuver is brilliant simply because the client is demanding it. The wealth actually insulates the client from reality.
That is crazy. Wealth doesn't buy you better legal advice, it just buys you a more expensive echo chamber.
That's a great way to put it.
And that staggering realization leads perfectly into the underlying motivations driving this entire spectacle. Why won't she just settle the 3 remaining claims and walk away? To understand that, we have to look at the ego, the money, and the complete collapse of their public relations narrative.
Because the legal realities of the case and the personal motivations of the plaintiff are just entirely out of alignment right now.
We are talking about a couple worth an estimated $380 million.
A massive fortune.
Built from acting, obviously, but also from highly lucrative business ventures, like the massive sale of a liquor company and a mobile network. They are undeniably savvy, ruthless business operators.
Absolutely.
And yet their current legal strategy involves desperately trying to keep the jury from knowing the actual scale of their wealth. They are attempting to plead relative poverty, or at least, regular person status in the courtroom.
Well, shielding wealth from a jury is a standard and often very necessary legal tactic.
But explain the mechanics of why they need to shield it. It's not just about seeming relatable, right? There is a mathematical reason for it regarding damages.
Correct. It comes down to how juries calculate punitive damages.
No.
If a plaintiff wins a case, they might be awarded statutory damages, which are fixed amounts meant to compensate for specific losses. But juries can also award punitive damages.
Which are meant to punish.
Exactly. They are designed entirely to punish the defendant and deter future bad behavior. So, if a jury knows the plaintiff is worth $380 million, they might calculate that a standard financial penalty won't actually hurt them.
Just feels like a parking ticket.
Right. A $5,000 fine to a billionaire is nothing. So the jury might massively inflate the punitive damages to ensure the financial sting is actually felt.
Okay, which totally explains the courtroom tactic. But it completely conflicts with their external public relations spin.
Oh, 100%.
The plaintiff's team has been aggressively pushing this narrative in the media that they are fighting this exhausting battle, quote unquote, for the children and for little girls everywhere to see justice served.
And the contrast between that noble public narrative and the brutal courtroom mechanics is jarring. Industry analysts are looking at the filings and concluding this is not a crusade for workplace safety.
It's a scorched earth, victory at all cost mentality.
Exactly. It appears entirely driven by ego and a fierce desire for absolute control over an intellectual property. The underlying issue really seems to be that she wanted creative control over the film, she was denied it, and now she is attempting to litigate her way to dominance to prove a point.
And this is where the seasoned legal advisors, the ones who aren't blinded by the echo chamber, are likely pulling their hair out behind closed
Oh,
doors.
they have to be.
There is a fundamental pragmatic motto in litigation. He who fights and runs away lives to fight another day.
Yes. A skilled attorney understands that the collateral damage of a prolonged trial can vastly outweigh the benefits of a potential victory.
Even if she wins.
Even if the plaintiff manages to win those 3 remaining narrow claims, the cost to her personal brand, her husband's brand, and their ongoing standing with the major studios is astronomically high.
It's just not worth it.
But when sheer ego replaces legal pragmatism, the damage multipliers engage. You stop fighting for a legal remedy and start fighting merely to prove that you cannot be told no.
And the court of public opinion is actively rejecting the narrative, too. We are seeing real audience fatigue.
People are tired of it.
They really are. Analysts are noting a rapidly growing public distaste for wealthy, isolated actors who attempt to preach moral superiority to the masses while simultaneously operating as untouchable elites.
The dissonance is huge.
It is. Claiming you are fighting for the common worker while charging fans $500 simply for a hug at a convention is destroying their credibility.
The public tolerance for that specific brand of hypocrisy has just plummeted. You cannot successfully present yourself as a relatable, beleaguered champion of the people in a court filing while operating an empire that monetizes basic human interaction at exorbitant rates in the real world.
It just doesn't work anymore. So what does this all mean for you listening right now? Like, why should you care about the legal missteps of a Hollywood millionaire?
It's a fair question.
Because this entire situation is a profound masterclass in crisis management. It demonstrates that deploying unlimited resources and highly aggressive, uncompromising tactics at a problem often manufactures a crisis infinitely worse than the one you initially faced.
It is a lesson in strategic proportion. Your reaction to a conflict must align with the reality of the situation, not the size of your ego or your bank account.
Let's quickly retrace the steps of this spectacular collapse. We started with a Hollywood harassment lawsuit that was supposed to be a straightforward display of power.
Right.
Instead, it devolved into a massive jurisdictional failure because you cannot arbitrarily import favorable state laws like a preferred customer perk.
No.
We saw how this aggressive strategy terrified powerful studio executives who view human actors as liabilities that threaten their billion-dollar IP ecosystems. We watched a $380 million fortune get awkwardly shielded from a jury to avoid inflated damages.
All while exposing the reality that hiring 4 prestigious law firms might actually be worse than hiring just one.
Thanks to the dangerous echo chamber of diffused responsibility.
It fundamentally highlights how the traditional power structures and leverage points in Hollywood are fracturing. The entities we thought held the power are suddenly finding themselves highly vulnerable.
Which brings us to the ultimate question. If human stars are becoming this problematic, where does this leave the future of the entertainment industry?
Well, it raises a deeply profound question about the future viability of the human actor itself.
Really?
Yeah. We might actually be observing the era where the traditional movie star begins to face obsolescence.
Wow.
Think about it. Put yourself in the position of a major corporate studio managing a multi-billion-dollar franchise. If human celebrity egos are proving to be this legally, financially, and publicly risky,
If they refuse to heed rational advice.
right. If they surround themselves with echo chambers and insist on scorched earth litigation over minor slights, studios are going to adapt to protect their investments.
So what's the alternative?
We may see a near future where corporations decide to bypass human volatility altogether, prioritizing entirely controllable, synthetic, or non-human IP.
That is wild to think about.
When the liability of a human being's unpredictable behavior routinely outweighs their star power, who truly holds the leverage in Hollywood, it might no longer be the actors.
That is a brilliant, entirely plausible thought to leave on. The idea that an ego-driven, messy lawsuit could inadvertently accelerate the replacement of the human movie star simply because they're mathematically too risky to insure.
Exactly.
It proves that throwing money at a bad strategy doesn't fix it. It just makes the eventual crash that much louder. Well, thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. Keep questioning those narratives you see in the headlines. Always look for the mechanical structures beneath the public drama, and we will catch you next time.